She played the fiddle in an Irish band, but she fell in love with an Englishman. Kissed her on the neck and then I took her by the hands. And baby, I just wanna dance. I met her on Grafton Street, right outside of the bar. She shared a cigarette with me while her brother played the guitar. She asked me, what does it mean, the Gaelic ink on your arm? Said it was one of my friend's songs, do you want to drink on? She took Jamie as a chaser, Jack for the fun. She got Arthur on the table with Johnny riding a shotgun. Chatted some more, one more drink at the bar, then put Van on the jukebox, got up to dance. You know she played her fiddle in an Irish band, but she fell in love with an Englishman. Kissed her on the neck and then I took her by the hands. And baby, I just wanna dance with my pretty little Galway girl. You're my pretty little Galway girl. You know she beat me at darts and then she beat me at pool, and then she kissed me like there was nobody else in the room. As last
Hi, I'm Christian and welcome to Dr. English. Today, we'll be discussing The Tiger by S. Rajaratnam. So S. Rajaratnam is a Singaporean legend, both politically and literature-wise. He studied at various institutions and later studied in King's College, London, England. The Tiger was written in London within 1940 to 1945 during the Second World War, in which Britain was an allied power fighting against Nazi Germany. He was so talented that George Orwell of The Animal Farm, another popular literature book, saw so much potential in him that when Orwell was working for the BBC Eastern Service, he recruited S. Rajaratnam to help him publish scripts. When Rajaratnam returned to Singapore, he stopped writing fiction and took to journalism. This story is one that brings out the horrors of reality in the brutality man has and will use just to stay on top of the food chain. The neglection man has when caring for other forms of life, the distrust of people they do not know, and how many overlook what women think in society. Some general ideas revolve around sexism, brutality, and fear. This story also has a darker side to it as well, because the main antagonist, the tiger, appears to be pregnant when analysed at a deeper level. It was written during World War II, in which a lot of bloodshed happened in Europe. This story was quite obviously referring to spies at that time. The tiger was a symbolism of a spy. The villagers were people living in each of the Axis and Allied countries, like in England and the USSR. Many will be suspecting any RM person they see on the street could be a German spy, and they would not know, but just in case, they kill him off. Only to realize he was innocent. Someone who died of a similar plight was Mata Hari during World War I, a Dutch dancer. He both mentions the scenario is very similar to the story of the tiger. This shock of uncertainty to exist between people at the time was very dangerous, making nearly everyone conscious about anyone they see on the street. Friends became enemies. People were suspicious of one another. They could trust nobody. This story also has links to S. Rajaratnam's childhood when he was in Jaffna, Sri Lanka, and his experiences handling threats to his village, namely and obviously tigers. When he was in Sri Lanka, it was still under the British rule, and most of the schools that eventually played a role in high literacy achievement belonged to different missionaries, such as the American Ceylon Mission. These played a part to pique his interest in literature.
The story begins with a woman, Fatima, wading into a river to bathe. She is at ease with herself, but the growl of a tiger puts her thoughts of relaxation quickly to rest. Being only meters away, the tiger's penetrating yellow eyes are what she spots first, and then its fangs. They stare at each other, both still, and the growls of the tiger became less and less menacing, and soon the tiger showed no intentions of attacking Fatima. However, Fatima was still suspicious and became even more anxious when night came and she realized that 2 lives were at stake, her own and a child in her womb. Taking her chances when the tiger looked away, Fatima swam for her life across the river, then ran for the village. Upon hearing of the exaggerated news of the tiger attacking Fatima, the villagers were stirred to a frenzy and sought out to kill the tiger. This is part of the rising action as the tension builds up with the life of the tiger at stake, followed by the turnover. The villagers, led by Mahmud, the village headman, seek out the tiger and the hunt begins. Despite Fatima's protest about the tiger meaning no harm, even proclaiming the tiger should be let go of, the villagers were obstinate. By daybreak, the sound of gunfire and the pained roar of the tiger signaled its death. This is the height of emotions as the reader anxiously awaits to know the fate of the tiger. Then the falling action begins, and the hunters return to announce that the tiger had cubs, which Mahmud planned to sell and make a profit. At this moment, Fatima is struck by labor pains, and the announcer runs to find a midwife. This brings the end of the story, where there's a slight cliffhanger, and the readers ask, what happens next? The plot of the story is arranged around the initial interaction between Fatima and the tiger, which we can call the introduction, which gives rise to the conflict between the villagers, the tiger, and Fatima. The rising action is caused by the tension between Fatima and the tiger, which proceeds to the village being in chaos as the news of the tiger spreads. It is at this point where there is the turning point, where the inevitable meeting between the hunters and the tiger is revealed. This is also where the falling action is set. The action is where Fatima anxiously defends the tiger, having realized that the animal means no harm. The denouement is ambiguous due to the story having stopped at where Fatima is about to go into labor, leaving the reader to wonder about the fate of the tiger cubs, and then realizing that there can be no happy ending to the story. This is a sort of partial resolution, because there is actually no resolve in the story, only the tragic death of the tiger and the knowledge of the cub's fate to act as a substitute. This parallels real life during World War II, where the innocents are killed, but nothing can be done about it, for they are truly dead and there is no happy resolution to it. This brings us to the conflict, which is between man and nature. However, the situation present here is special, as it does not show the animal, the tiger, as the aggressor. The aggressor, in fact, are the villagers. In other words, mankind. Us. This gives cause for reflection for readers, as the villagers are the offenders in this case. This resembles typical human nature, in which people are distrustful of foreigners and may seek to harm them. This is especially relevant in the context of World War II, where many were distrustful of new people and bunched together in groups and looked to hurt the foreigners, such as the Aryan people among the British. Another conflict is between Fatima and society. The story has connotations on a village having sexist values, as they do not regard Fatima's opinion seriously. Even though she was the so-called victim and first-hand witness, they did not listen to her pleas and regarded her opinion as lesser than those of the men. This reflects the society then, back in World War II, where the choices and decisions of men outruled those of women. And they may even be called crazy by others, just like Fatima is called crazy by her mother. The third conflict is between man himself, where Fatima struggles with pleading, for instance, of the tiger, and yet also adhering to the expectations of society, which was the opinion on tigers. This is a private struggle she has with herself, in which she ultimately chooses to defend the tiger, despite her mother's chastises. We now come to the use of language. In general, there are uses of sensory images throughout the story, such as sight and hearing. There is a strong use of visual imagery within the story. The story itself is meant to be embedded in realism, and thus its purpose is reflected in the composition of its sentences, which are filled with adjectives meant to impart images on the reader's mind. In the setting of the scene at the beginning of the tale, quote, Fatima felt the cool yellow waters of the river, a sheet of burnished gold in a dying sun glow. And unquote. The use of adjectives such as yellow and gold allow the reader to picture the scene clearly, letting them to be immersed into the story right from the start. There are also many descriptions of the location, such as the inclusion of details like lalang grass, tall trees, and quote, a bewildering luxuriance of foliage, unquote. Imagery is especially well used in the description of the tiger, quote, framed by lalang and low to the ground were the massive head and shoulders of the tiger. The sun imparted a wicked glint into his staring yellow eyes, turned its head and snarled, revealing its red tongue and the yellow fangs which looked like tree stumps. There are inclusions of color into the text which make the tiger seem even more real. The comparison of the fangs to tree stumps allow the reader to have a clearer idea on the image of the tiger. Senses of hearing are also included in, quote, the shrill scream of a cicada and the distant hoot of an owl signaled the transition from day to night. This also imparts a sense of realism. We will now move on to character traits. There are also many descriptions of the location, such as the inclusion of details like lalang grass, trees, and a bewildering luxuriance of foliage. Imagery is especially well used in the description of the tiger, quote, framed by lalang and low to the ground with the massive head and shoulders of the tiger. The sun imparted a wicked glint to his staring yellow eyes. It turned its head and snarled, revealing its red tongue and the yellow fangs that looked like tree stumps. There are inclusions of color into the text which make the tiger seem even more real, and a comparison of the fangs to tree stumps allow the reader to have a clearer idea on the image of the tiger. The sense of hearing are included in, quote, the shrill scream of a cicada and the distant hoot of an owl signal the transition from day to night. This also imparts a sense of realism. We will now move on to the character traits.
Now, let us go into the usage of literary and rhetorical devices in this short story. To make a story much more effective in evoking an emotion on the part of the reader or audience, these devices can be used. Literary devices refer to the typical structures used by writers in their works to convey his or her messages in a simple manner to the readers. When employed properly, the different literary devices can help readers to appreciate, interpret, and analyze a literary work. The story has multiple facets, which make it an impactful story. So without further ado, let's go straight into the story. The first and main type of literary device is the use of irony. In this story, there are many ironical situations. Let's explore them in depth. Upon first reading about the tiger coming to face Fatima, the readers are made to think that this will be a conflict between man and nature. The potential conflict is between Fatima and the tiger. However, the author instead portrays the tiger as being gentle, against the archetype of the beast the enemy of man, the antagonist within the story. In the text, Fatima, as one of who had seen the animal firsthand, should not be the one asking for the animal's life. One would have expected her to even be traumatized by the experience and be scared out of her wits. The author's decision to let Fatima play such a role as the tiger's defender portrays her as a sympathetic character, allowing for readers to have a deeper impression of her. The other notable part is that the tiger is the opposite of the classical archetype of the monster. In fact, the tiger portrays the traits that are the complete opposite of the monster. The tiger does not display signs of aggressiveness, or perhaps the tiger had lost interest in her over time. After watching one another, the tiger did not attack her, but instead, after a while, the animal took a diminishing interest in her. In fact, the glare of its eyes had changed into a sullen and frequently bored expression. These lines display passiveness as the tiger's traits, and thus show the tiger as a gentle creature, which goes against the traditional roles played by animals. Next, another irony is when the man leaves the village to hunt down the tiger. At that point in time, she hoped that it was far off the man's reach. It shows that Fatima wants the tiger to escape the man instead of being hunted down for the safety of her and the others in the village. Even when the tiger was a threat to the villagers, an irony is played here, where Fatima is supposed to want the tiger dead as soon as possible. However, for some reason, she was averse to having the tiger hunted and killed. This gives a sense of curiosity to the readers of why Fatima did not want the tiger to be killed, and there is an obvious threat to her fellow villagers and her own family. This is probably due to the tiger not attacking her, even when it could have, and hence giving Fatima a sense of sympathy for the tiger. This makes the story more remarkable, as it does not adhere to traditional methods of storytelling, and thus leave a deeper impression on the reader. Next, we'll go into another minor literary devices, which still gives an everlasting impact to the Singaporean story. Just like any other impacting stories, imageries are used to depict the setting of the story. In this case, Fatima, the main character, is depicted to be waddling in the river, with no specific cause. The river is clearly depicted, together with the environment around her. Her figure is also stated, and where it tells the readers that Fatima is pregnant. Right to the next sentence, a hyperbole is used to exaggerate how Fatima and other typical Malays look. The author states his personal view on the Malays, so typical of the Malays. Instead, an ethereal melancholy in the black oblique eyes. This is how the author gives an effective sense of the main character and her state of mind at that point in time. Next, a simile is used in the last sentence of paragraph 2. Personally, I really like the use of this simile because it too bonds with the imagery. It is very effective in depicting the surrounding environment around her and how she feels about being in that environment. It gives the environment, the forest, a fantasy look where she stumbled into a world still in dawn of creation. However, there is still a mysterious feel to it, where the earth was an oozing swamp in which wallowed a host of hideous monsters. This hints the audience that the scene is deserted, with mystery around every corner, and basically anything can happen anytime. It could also be a form of foreshadowing, where the audience will tense on what happened next should be related to the hideous monsters around her. In the next paragraph, it is where the hideous monster emerges, revealing it to be a tiger. Again, it foreshadows the fate of Fatima, as she heard the low, vibrant growl of the tiger, which then the tiger broke into a dull, angry roar and convinced her that it was not a creature of her imagination. As for the plot, it tenses the readers as the next actions of the tiger will determine the fate of Fatima or whether she will live. In the last phrase of the next paragraph, the author uses simile and describes the tiger's yellow fangs as 3 stumps. It shows the size of the tiger's fangs to be very huge, portraying the tiger to be dangerous. Next, we have the simile of the woman clucking like hens at the sight of a wheeling hawk when they heard of Fatima's mother spreading the news on the tiger. This shows the panic of the woman when they hear that a tiger is lurking around their village. Comparing the hens to the woman and the tiger to the hawk, the use of metaphor, or specifically metonymy, is used to compare the hairy one to the tiger when Fatima's mother referred to the tiger when speaking to the others. This is a very strong way on showing the kampung culture by the diction of their speeches and perhaps their education level, as Fatima's mother did not describe the carnivore as a tiger. The little understatement is seen when another character, Mahmud, comes into the story and expresses his excitement for hunting down the tiger down. Mahmud fingers his new double-barreled gun with all the impatience of one whose hunting spirit has been aroused. It was all for hunting the tiger, at once simply because he loved hunting. The fact that his quarry was a tiger made him all the more eager. The author wants to show Mahmud to be a brave character and the fact that he wants to risk his life for the safety of the villagers. Next, we have the enumeration, where it sets the scene of the man leaving to hunt the tiger in the eyes of Fatima. She sees through the narrow window. The moon cast a yellow, mellow radiance over everything it touched, and she could see the moon, broken like molten silver, through the rustling coconut fronds. As we move down the story, another simile is seen where Fatima's mother states the tiger to be a beast as cunning as 100 foxes. This shows the point of view of Fatima's mother through the tiger, as sly and deceitful as a trust in the tiger's absence. As you have realized, there have been many uses of similes in the short story, and here's another one where Fatima awaits the arrival of the man from hunting the tiger, as she sees the village as though enveloped in a funeral shroud. This is effective in describing the atmosphere of the village to be dead silence in the night as they wait for the man to return. The next literary device used is analogy, where she hears a faraway crack of a rifle. This literary device is the hardest to spot amongst the rest, and we will go in depth into it. So, at the start of the story, it is known to the readers that Fatima is pregnant. When the tiger is being shot, Fatima quivered as if the shots had been aimed at her, and for a few seconds the cry of the animal, long drawn out of his agony, seemed to fill up her heart and ears. She wanted to re-echo the cry. This shows the relationship between Fatima and the tiger, and hence the literary device used here is analogy. As we move on further to the end of the story, it states that the tiger had just given birth to its baby cubs. Well, that's it for literary devices. See if you can spot any more.
Fatima is a grateful person. This can be seen in she hoped that it would be far out of the man's reach. This shows that she hoped that the tiger would remain safe and unharmed. This is because the tiger had the opportunity to attack her with ease, yet it did not even attempt to strike at her. As a result, she was genuinely appreciative towards the tiger and was truly concerned for its safety. The tiger is a protective creature. This can be seen from how the tiger did not attack Fatima even when the opportunity presented itself in order to ensure the safety of its cubs. The tiger's behavior was extremely similar to that of human parents. It prioritized the safety of its babies over its own needs, which goes to show how much it cares and loves for them. Another reason why the tiger did not attack Fatima was because it was able to empathize with her and it understood how much a mother loved her child. As such, the tiger spared Fatima and had mercy on her. Mahmud was a responsible man who prioritized the safety of the villagers, especially the more vulnerable members of the community, such as the women and children, over his own safety. This can be seen in how he was willing to risk his life to go in search of the supposedly ferocious tiger in order to protect the residents of the village. Mahmud is also masculine as he regarded the women as weaker and more vulnerable than men. This can be seen in it is the duty of the menfolk to protect them. Viewpoint and characterization. This story was written during World War II, in which Britain was an allied power fighting against Nazi Germany. This was a period of great suffering and fear.
with people being exposed to inhumane acts every day. As earlier mentioned, this story was quite obviously referring to spies at that time. The tiger was a representation of a spy, while the villagers were people living in each of the Axis or allied countries such as England and the USSR. Many suspected any Aryan people they saw on the street, as they could be German spies. As a result of their suspicions, they killed countless numbers of Aryans without even ensuring that they were actually spies before taking their lives. The author wanted to put the message across to his audience that it was not alright to inflict harm or to sabotage others out of doubt and fear. These senseless killings merely cause further bloodshed and grief. To depict the true horror of these acts, the author created emotional bonds between the reader and the tiger by giving it a personality. The tiger was pregnant and had no intention of causing harm to any of the villagers, yet it was persecuted and killed solely because of the villagers' fear of tigers.